Hey everybody, Jacob here. This week is a little bit of a weird episode here because of all the shit that's been going on. So if you came hoping for some escapism and some goofs and jokes, this might not be the episode of This Week in Blernsball for you.
Ben over here, we felt it was necessary to do an additional episode this week in light of what's been happening in the United States and in the sports world. But yeah, we get into some heavy shit. We think it's a necessary listen, but we understand if people don't want to listen or would rather get their information from not the two of us. We absolutely understand, and we appreciate your consideration.
Yeah. So we promise that if the world is a little more normal come next Tuesday, we'll be back to doing our usual goofs and jokes and making fun of movies. But until then, we felt that this was really necessary to do, and this was an important topic to take on. So we appreciate it if you do listen, and if not, we completely understand.
Welcome to This Week in Blernsball, where we're bringing you an additional episode this week just because of some unprecedented developments in the sports world. I am your co-host, Ben Bloom. With me, as always, is Jacob Morris. And if you listen to our 30th episode spectacular, this is going to be very different from what happened on that episode. Yes, we led with some serious things to begin there, but there have been some serious developments in the sports world and, let's be honest, in the real world that happens to happen in the sports world.
Yeah, that's one heck of a way to put it. That's not bury the leader, bite the bullet. What happened with Jacob Blake in Wisconsin has really shaken the sports world and the real world to its core over the last couple of days. And as much as we're here to talk about sports and make some funny goofs about Futurama and comic books, it's important that we talk about the real serious issues that we're facing in this pretty much unprecedented time.
Absolutely. So really, if you want, you could turn off this podcast and go to a trusted news source from either Canada or the United States or anywhere around the world. Read about what happened to Jacob Blake, who was shot 7 times in the back by police in Kenosha, Wisconsin. What possible fucking reason is there for that? That in itself is like we could end the podcast here and go find out what happened, see what can be done to bring who is responsible to justice for that. And again, it's we've seen it this year already with the killing of George Floyd. We saw it with the fact that, the people who killed Breonna Taylor, the police who killed Breonna Taylor, are still not, arrested or facing charges. It's just sad. It's enraging. It's awful. And then what happened in the wake of Jacob Blake's killing was that people, of course, were protesting his death and calling for justice. And then at those protests, a 17-year-old with an assault rifle shoots 3 people, killing 2, and then runs in the direction of the police and isn't apprehended until a day later. I mean, we're not making this shit up. This is this is what's happening.
It's dystopian, what's happening. Now, not to undersell what happened to Jacob Blake. Fortunately, was not killed, just grievously wounded. And if that's the solace we're taking out of this, something is seriously fucked up. And I know we're using strong language here, but it's the only way to really express how we're feeling right now. Something is
sorry,
something seriously wrong with what's going on. And thankfully, most of the sports world is taking a stand here and agreeing with us that something is seriously wrong, and now isn't the time for sports.
Of course, and you saw earlier this week members of the Toronto Raptors and Boston Celtics discussing not playing their first playoff game, which was scheduled for Thursday. You had reports that some players are considering just leaving the bubble altogether to really make the attention about, again, the killing of another Black person by police. And you said dystopian. It's unfortunately a real reality for so many people. I mean, for us, it's dystopian because, as two white guys, we're like, what kind of world is it where police, will shoot people in the back and not face consequences for it? For so many people, that is a reality, and it's awful. It's sickening. And so if the least you can do is, I've seen the word boycott, I've seen Wildcat strike in terms of, the actual action being taken by athletes to not play and put the attention on what really matters. That's step one. Fucking take it. And we saw that happen yesterday, on Wednesday, I should say, when the Milwaukee Bucks, the NBA's professional Wisconsin team, refusing to play. And then their opponent, the Orlando Magic, joined them shortly thereafter. They wouldn't accept the forfeit. They too were withholding from playing. And then the rest of that evening's NBA games, I know there was a game earlier in the day that was already in progress, but the rest of the games for that evening, the players decided not to play in those either. And since this is a baseball podcast, there was a ripple effect where in 3 Major League Baseball games, the players are the ones taking action on this. The players decided not to play. And then it was, team ownership coming in with support for that. Let's make that abundantly clear.
Yeah, and there was a great statement from the Brewers, again, Wisconsin's professional baseball team. The players from the Brewers and Reds have decided not to play tonight's baseball game. With our community and nation in such pain, we wanted to draw as much attention to the issues that really matter, especially racial injustice and systemic oppression. And I mean, that's the message right there. It's put your attention on the cause that matters, not the baseball. Baseball is so secondary right now.
Absolutely. And then, you had the San Francisco Giants and LA Dodgers, the players on those teams deciding not to play. And I saw a quote from Mookie Betts earlier saying that he wasn't going to play regardless. And the fact that his teammates immediately had his back and would not play is a really heartening thing. A week where I believe on Fridays when Major League Baseball is supposed to commemorate Jackie Robinson's accomplishments.
Yeah.
And then I believe the Seattle Mariners were playing the San Diego Padres, and were supposed to play the Padres, and they decided to the players decided not to play that game.
Yeah, so the Seattle Mariners are the most heavily African-American team in Major League Baseball, and they collectively decided not to play that game as well, in solidarity with the Brewers and the action going on in Wisconsin. So there were collectively, I believe, 4 games. That means 8 teams that didn't play last night as a result of this, and then a 5th game that was rained out. So it means in total, 20% of the league did not play last night.
And again, of course, this is a baseball podcast. That's where our focus is. But again, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that the action taken by WNBA players, not only walking into the arena wearing, shirts with letters that spelled out Jacob Blake, but on the back of those shirts, having, bullet holes, 7 on each shirt, and then all of the players in the WNBA choosing not to play, later holding a candlelight vigil again. Like, the WNBA further proving that they are just exponentially, more committed, like, than any. And then again, like you were telling me offline, like, the WNBA, makes the NBA look bad, and the NBA is like the pinnacle of, like, socially conscious, like, using power for good sports leagues.
Yeah, the WNBA, and they have so much more to lose as a women's league because they don't have the viewership, they don't have the sponsorship, they don't have the money. So every little bit that they have means so much more. They have that much more to lose. And they are willing to take these stands so regularly because they really know what it means to hold that kind of power. And they're willing to stand up for what they really know is right. Yeah. And what really pissed me off last night was that our teams played. The Jays were playing the Red Sox, and it was a 6:30 start. And we had already seen things had started to go down. The NBA games had been canceled. There was rumblings of baseball games being canceled. And our teams chose to take the field. And that was immensely disappointing to me.
It was an absolute letdown. Like, I know I personally didn't watch just because, like, last night was not the night for sports. And yeah, it's just something that, again, like, you're seeing, like, bits and pieces come out this morning about why that happened. But even then, it's and Jackie Bradley Jr. put out a great statement after the game. But even then, I mean, it's a letdown. And again, like we can't, we do not tell people what to do. Like we voice our opinions, of course. Like, that's the point of a podcast. But really, I mean, like, last night was not the night for professional sports. Like, that was the night for, like, demanding justice, demanding change. Like, you saw professional teams posting the emails and phone numbers of, the Wisconsin State Legislature, of I believe the Wisconsin Sheriff's Department.
Wisconsin Attorney General, yeah.
Was. And even and then last night in the NBA bubble, the players and coaches had a meeting, and then later the coaches were asked to leave so the players could discuss options in their own right. And Thursday morning, in case you're listening to this on a different day, the NBA Board of Governors is meeting at 11 Eastern, and there's going to be another players meeting concurrently with that.
Yeah, so we are talking as news is continuing to break. Apparently, 2 teams last night spoke out in favor of completely suspending the NBA season. That would be the Lakers and the Clippers. We're not certain, as of this time of recording, what's going to happen. And really, we're not sure what should happen. This is not our position to take. This is not our lived experience. And like we've said so many times before, we're very privileged guys, all things considered. We're straight, we're white, we're male. We come from a very privileged position in terms of dealings with society. It's not something we can really lecture on.
No, all we can do is, point to the voices that should be heard, to the causes that should be championed, and we're here to support. We the two of us unequivocally support these, pushes for racial justice, these pushes for societal change. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, blanket you.
No,
in that
blanket
statement.
me with that statement. Go ahead.
And, like, yeah, period. End of sentence. Like, if you didn't know how we thought or felt beforehand, now like, explicitly clear. And again, like, our job here is to highlight the voices that should be paying attention to. D. Gordon of the Seattle Mariners posted a really thoughtful pair of statements on Twitter. Well, there's a two-part statement. There are serious issues in this country. For me and for many of my teammates, and the injustices, violence, death, and systemic racism is deeply personal. This is impacting not only my community, but very directly my family and friends. Our team voted unanimously not to play tonight. Instead of watching us, we hope people will focus on the things more important than sports that are happening. Yeah, I can leave it at that because, again, like, so many people have said so many powerful things. If you haven't watched the Milwaukee Bucks statement, go and watch that. Sam Mitchell, former coach of the Toronto Raptors, now an NBA analyst, commentator, was on ESPN's pre-show, which turned into the entire coverage when the Bucks and Magic decided not to play. Go find what he was talking about. Go read Malika Andrews' coverage of all of this. It's a lot. It's overwhelming. It's emotionally raw, and it's fucking necessary.
Absolutely, it is.
I'm sorry.
No, please. I'm going to tag this episode as explicit because it needs to be. Yeah. There are certain words that need to be said sometimes. And so the thing that's really pissed me the fuck off the last day or two is the people trying to justify this shit. Where was Jacob Blake an angel? I don't know. Were there warrants out for him? Maybe. What was he resisting arrest? I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't know what the situation was. I do know that the police are not judge, jury, and executioner. I do know that there is no situation in which you are justified to shoot someone 7 times in the back. You are not a threat if you are not facing them. Period. End of sentence. You should only be using force to that extent if you are threatened. And you cannot be threatened if you are not being faced. And then we look at this white guy, this 17-year-old wannabe vigilante, carrying an assault rifle, shooting people, coming towards the police with an assault rifle. And they were like, how do you do? There you go. And he walked away. And that, if that doesn't tell you what the difference is between how the police treat white people in America and how the police treat black people in America, I don't know what does.
It's, again, sickening, awful, infuriating. And again, like, human dignity, like regardless of who you are, what you've done, anything, like, you are a human being. You do not deserve to, like you said, be literally shot in the back. And further, when injustice happens, people have a right to protest that safely without fear of reprisals. I mean, it's just completely, yeah. I mean, this isn't our lived experience, and we are struggling to find words, and that's okay. We don't need to have all the right words, all the right answers right now. We can point you to who is more adept and more able to, speak on these issues. And really, like, this is tangentially a sports story. Like, this is a human rights issue. This is like the fact that sports got, that the fact that, like, this affects everyone, that it happens to include athletes. That's our only connection.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean, and I'm sure those who are still listening at this point know what you mean too. There was a great quote at the time of the George Floyd killing that's circled back around this time. Sports are a reward for a functioning society. And right now, society does not seem to be functioning.
No.
We're talking about a virus that's killed close to 200,000 people in the United States. We're talking about killings of black people in the streets by roving gangs of militias. We're talking about a justice system that is radically flawed. It makes sense that there is not sports. When society has fixed itself, then we can get sports again. And that's why last night there was not sports, except for hockey.
I wasn't even going to talk about it. I mean, I give absolute, like an absolute shout out to Kelly Rudy and Elliot Friedman, who during their time on air discussed what should be discussed. And of course, you had David Amber interviewing Evander Kane about this issue, and again, like one of the points that was made last night was it shouldn't just be the black hockey players taking a stand on this. Like, where is the support? Where is the commitment to making the world better, making your country better, making your city better? It's literally letting down your teammates. And I don't even want to talk about hockey. They're not deserving. The sport is not deserving of our attention. Like, the NHL is not deserving of our attention.
Yeah. What I will say is I very rarely agree with Kelly Rudy on a lot of what he says. And I mean, maybe this is a case of a stop clock is right twice a day. Maybe this is a case of it's 2020 and everything is upside down. But he was right last night that there should not have been. And this is a case of they got it wrong and he got it right.
And yeah, on a normal episode, we'd be cracking jokes about Kelly Rudy. This is not a normal episode. And yeah, we know who we are. We know where we come from. We would be remiss, if not culpable, if we didn't talk about this.
Yeah. Now, what I would like to do is recommend a book. And I'm actually going to dig it out and hold it up for those of you who watch us on YouTube. It's How to Be Anti-Racist by, I'm going to butcher the name, Ibram X. Kendi. And this is a book that literally every single I'm not even sure what to say, every single person, I was going to say every single white person, but every single person should read. It's important not just to be not racist, it's important to combat racism in your life. Mm-hmm. And a little bit of what we're trying to do here today is that.
Yeah. And again, if you are inclined to make a financial contribution, again, this is like everyone's personal right to do. Excuse me. If you go to Black Lives Matter's website, they have options. You can donate to legal defense funds. You can donate to programs that help in Black communities. There are ways to put your dollar figure behind it if that is how you want to do it. Again, the first best step is action. Like how you act, how you treat people, how you live your life. And again, I saw a great sentiment about baseball last night. I can't remember, and I'm sorry that I can't remember who said it, that Major League Baseball is facing a Pee Wee Reese moment, if it's not already there already. For those of you who aren't as familiar with baseball history, Pee Wee Reese, a longtime shortstop for the Brooklyn Dodgers, who during one game where Jackie Robinson was being particularly, he faced racial abuse on a near constant basis just for being a professional athlete, just for who he was. And during one of the games, the story is that Pee Wee Reese walked across the diamond and put his arm around Jackie's shoulders. Yeah, all of professional sports, all of now is the time for us to do that.
Yeah. Now is the time, and now is the place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of out. Do you have anything else to add?
I mean, again, if you listen to us thus far, like, hit pause right now. Go find out what's happening. Go try to make this world better. And yeah, like, yeah, you shouldn't be listening to us about this. If you're listening to us about this, you have to find people who actually can say something of like can say something of substance.
Yeah,
Like,
and
go find
if you need to listen to this from a sports perspective for some reason, there are better sports voices on this too than us. You can listen to Donovan Bennett of Sportsnet. He's written great pieces on this. You can listen to, I mean, I don't love the guy, but Arash Madani, he speaks about it from a minority perspective as well. Again,
and actually do love Erasmus.
You know, different perspectives, different strokes for different folks.
Mm-hmm. And again, but that's okay. Right now, like, listen to people who you don't agree 1,000% with. Like that's the point of all this. Like, this is an issue that spans, our usual differences.
And if you're an American listener, go vote. There's
Go
an election
fucking
coming
vote.
up on November 3rd. Get your ballot. Vote by mail if you can, so that you're not going and making people sick. Vote early, and go make your voice heard. Close to 1 in 4 over 1 in 4 Americans, close to 1 in 3 Americans didn't vote 4 years ago. Your voice makes a difference. Go vote.
And that vote is for so many levels of government. There are cities in the United States having mayoral races. There are, every seat in the House of Representatives is up for grabs. 33 Senate seats are up for grabs. Of course, the presidential election. There are ballot measures.
Big one is sheriff. The sheriff decides a lot of things in local areas, and that can help determine law enforcement in your area and stop things like a George Floyd or a Jacob Blake from happening again, because they determine the law enforcement priorities.
Yeah, I mean, like, we've gone full last week tonight at this point, and that's okay. That's what the situation called for, and I think we can wrap it at that.
Yeah, I think so. So obviously this has been a non-traditional episode of ours. It's been a real non-traditional week. I promise come Tuesday, assuming things are a little more normal, we'll be back to normal. We'll have our usual bits. We'll be joking and goofing off and making fun of Sean Connery movies. But until then,
if things aren't normal, you're going to hear more about this, and that's okay by me.
Yeah, that's completely okay by me too. But until then, how you can follow us, because
we'll leave it in the description. Like,
fair enough, but we'll leave it in the description. We'll also leave in the description ways that you can follow and help if you're so inclined, for following Black Lives Matter and bail funds and whatnot. And until then, for This Week in Blernsball, I'm Jacob Morris.
I'm Ben Bloom. Thank you so much for joining us.